It's Kev Cage. Good seeing you. I'm a grandpa, and I still haven't figured this out. Try as I might to understand how to go in horizontal mode. Ew, I still have my rubber bands in. Let's take care of that. I set it up wrong. So we're going vertical today. Sorry. Hang on one second. This is gross. I'm going to turn you away. Boop. All right, we're back. Where is there's a chat on here? There we go. I can't find it. I really should test run this stuff so I know what I'm doing beforehand and don't look like a complete bozo. But anyway, thank you so much for joining the Coins for Cash fundraiser. We are in support of Park Stop's Stop Hate fundraiser today. I take this opportunity to say that I am not affiliated with the Park Stop fundraiser in any way. I just wanted to show my support. So every year it's head up by Alicia Stella of Park Stop. She does a great fundraiser where she solicits artists to donate art pieces that they sell prints of. There's some fun auctions, and I'm not an artist by any stretch of the imagination, but I did want to help, so I couldn't donate something I drew because it'd be terrible and nobody would buy it. But what I did want to do is try to collect some coins and have people make a pledge per coin collected and go from there. So I've got 2 hours to collect as many coins as I can. We'll raise some money. If you do want to donate, feel free to do so by clicking the link below for the Trevor Project. Unlike last stream fundraiser that I did though, I did come with notes this time. So I actually have some stuff to talk about. And I'll get started should there be anybody else who joins the stream. But we're gonna start collecting coins in a second. I have my route mapped out. And yeah, I guess 9:05, we're gonna stop at 11:05. So let's see how many coins we can get. We're gonna start right now. All right, that's 2. I'm gonna keep going. In any case, Pride Month is coming to a close. And I think it's important for, as we end this month, to kind of get a better understanding of, you know, why this is so important and why it's important for me. I am not a member of the community, but I do think it's important, and it is an important cause to me. Look at these are up here. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk a little bit about my journey on why this event is so important. And, you know, this is gonna be to a lot of people who are in the community, seem like obvious and not nothing new, but my journey to understanding the event and the month and all that stuff was sort of a long one. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are in a similar situation like that. So this is more about me kind of sharing that story and going from there. So I might be repeating myself. I just have notes, but you know. By the way, if you're wondering how I'm going to keep track of how many coins I have collected over the 2 hours, they have these little kiosks that you can scan into, and they'll show you how many you have for the day. So don't you worry about that. This will be an honest and accurate report. For those of you who don't know, the Trevor Project supports LGBTQ youth. It offers services like a lifeline sort of thing. And recently, the administration has cut their funding as part of official federal programming. They still have these services available. It's just not a part of the official, I forget the number, because I never have information that you need. But, and that's a bummer. So raising money for this is important because empathy is important for kids. If this at any point gets unbearably loud to the point where you can't hear me, or it just sounds like a train wreck, please let me know. I do see that there's one chat in there, so I should be able to keep an eye on it as we're going through here. I'm gonna have to pick up my pace to really get these coins going. Ah, that one's empty. That's not helpful. There is one over here though that I think has a lot of coins in it. Here's one. Nice. And then this one usually has a lot of coins. Oh no. Oh no. That one is broken. That is going to severely put a dent in my coin collecting for the day. I'm going to have to pick up the pace. Let me walk down these stairs before I check my notes again. Hello, Roland Goron. Thank you for joining. I'll probably take a moment like an hour in to see how far I've gone. But yeah, as I was saying, it's a very difficult time for people in the LGBTQ plus community. A lot of legislation that is terrible. There's book banning, the worst thing on the face of the planet is happening. So we're going to talk a little bit about why that's so awful as I continue to get coins. All right, that completes, oh, nope, sorry, I forgot there's more, geez. So yeah, we'll get to that later. For now, we're gonna just keep collecting. 5 minutes in, we got a bunch. It's a beautiful day. The sun is shining here in Super Nintendo. There we go, I'm making up for some of those before. Yep. That one was wet, which I appreciate. I guess a lot of people are washing their hands when they leave the bathroom and running right to the coin blocks. So that's good. Here's my next station. Whoop. There we go, that's good. We're raising money. That's right. All right, that completes the first lap, and we're just gonna keep doing this over and over and over again to see how much money we could raise. So just for posterity, I know there's not a lot of people watching this right now, as I fully don't expect anybody to be standing here for 2 hours watching this entire thing, but we can start the conversation. Really where it starts is my personal journey of growing up, and I never thought that I was like, you know, an outright terrible person. But when I was a kid, I was taught politeness and not necessarily empathy. And to me, that's kind of like at the core of where a lot of these problems come, is that people think that they're nice people and they think that they're, you know, acting in folks' best interests because they are quote unquote kind or polite, but they're not they're not empathetic. And I'll touch on this later. I know that it sort of seems obvious of like, how do you not have empathy? How do you not care? But in certain scenarios when you're growing up, it isn't as obvious as it should be. And that's not something that I'm stoked about, but it is was my reality and sort of made me who I am. So as you'll travel with me on this journey to enlightenment, I did always kind of root for the underdog, even when I was a kid. And that's because I come from a long line of bullying. My father was bullied. I'm sure his father before him was bullied. My dad actually has this story about when he lost his, he was going sledding, and these older kids like stole his sled, and they were trying to pull it from him. He was a preemie, so he was always like super small for his age, but he dealt with a lot of that growing up, and I dealt with a lot of that growing up for a different reason. I wasn't a preemie, but I am small. And I got bullied for being small, and I got bullied for even being smart. Like other kids in the class who were like, yeah, he's always first done with his homework. And, you know, I get it. I wasn't bragging about it or anything. I mean, maybe I was a little bit, but, you know, so I always kind of saw myself as an underdog, and I always sort of like rooted for the plight of others, even though, you know, all things considered, I wasn't really any sort of underdog. But it was around 11 or 12 when that sort of started changing, and I went from being like a sweet little naive kid to being like super dismissive and mean-spirited, because when you're growing up and things are tough, it's so much easier to be angry than it is to be sad. And I think that's something, again, as we talk about like, Coinblock's not working, as we talk about mental health and the plight of, you know, others, a lot of kids turn to anger because it's just easier than being upset about stuff all the time. And it's also, again, why, yeah, that was a good one, why programs like the Trevor Project are important. It's not broken. It's also why programs like the Trevor Project are important, because kids are the most, you know, the most vulnerable, especially kids in marginalized communities. So anyway, excuse me as I start getting out of breath here. That kind of whole thing for me was like self-preservation. And I don't know that I was like an outright bully to anybody, but I was certainly dismissive to anybody who wasn't like a direct friend of mine or had any views that sort of challenged stuff that I was thinking about. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty in those years that I feel shame about all these years later. You know, we look back and we'll touch on some of that stuff in a little bit, but you know, I think about behaviors and things that I said, and it's not stuff that I'm proud about, but I feel that it's helping people change, because there may be some people now who are in that sort of same state that I was in then, kind of being understanding of that and helping guide them will help everybody, generally speaking, if that makes sense. But I also, not to take this off in a severe thing, and this will be a funny juxtaposition as I'm punching coins over here, but I grew up in a very Catholic household with super conservative, you know, parents. I mean, they weren't like complete, you know, it wasn't like living in the Third Reich or anything, but they definitely held like sort of traditionally conservative or Catholic views. And yeah, that was a good one. And those tenets just sort of like glom onto you when you're a kid. It's not anything that you have control over. It's just what you are being taught. Like, it shapes who you are, because how could it not? It's your parents and your community. These are the things that you have around you. But things start to change when I was in high school. And if you know me, I've probably shared this conversation with you before as I turn the page of my notes. Pardon me. I had a group of, I don't want to say like we were the island of misfit toys, but you know, we were a group of kind of like the outsider, non-popular kids in high school. And you know, you have those conversations as you do when you're sitting in the back of your friend's pickup truck and talking about life. And I thought, what if there was something about me that you guys didn't know, and it was something like bad or whatever, and would you guys still be my friend? And they're all like, there is nothing bad about you. You've never done anything. And I was like, yeah, but what if there was? And they all said, whatever. And they kind of blew me off, and that was the end of that conversation. But in the next week, every single person who was in that car with me shared a story of something that they were going through that they hid from me because they weren't sure how I would react to it. And I mean, we're talking anything from like, abortion to, to depression. And I laugh as I say that as I'm punching coin blocks, Hey, here's Mario and Luigi walking through. That is a segue if there ever was one. Let's go! Amazing. Where was I? Yeah, one of those kids who was in the car with me was actually my doubles partner in tennis, and he pulled me aside and he was like, "I need to tell you that I'm gay," and I said, "Oh, okay. Why didn't you tell me?" Because everybody knew in that circle of friends except me. And he's like, "Well, I wasn't sure how you'd react." I'm like, "What do you mean you weren't sure how I'd react? I'm your friend. This is like literally the thing that we were just talking about." And he's like, "Well, the way you kind of talk sometimes and, casually using slurs." And I'm like, "Oh, you do that stuff because you're not thinking about it right in front of somebody who's being affected by it. And that's horrible." And I was like, "No, of course I don't care." And he's like, "I was just afraid that you wouldn't want to be my partner anymore. You wouldn't want to be my doubles partner." And that was really awful for me. I mean, obviously, the way I acted around him was awful too, but I mean, it was a weird thing for me to kind of come to terms with, of like, I can't believe somebody who I consider to be a good friend, who's near and dear to me, that I spend a lot of time with, I can't believe that that person would ever think that I would judge them in that way. And so that was kind of eye-opening. But I wasn't there yet. The wheels started turning, but I still wasn't completely understanding what advocacy was and allyship was. So fast forward to a year or two later, and I had a girlfriend who worked at Nordstrom's. No, Bloomingdale's, sorry. That's not important, but I'm only a stickler for detail when I'm talking about the minutia of my life. Anything else that's important information that I should probably know, that somehow is lost on me. In any case, we're at Bloomingdale's, and she worked with a very sweet gay gentleman, and he was a kid, he was, I don't know, maybe he was 15 or 16 at the time, maybe 18, I don't know how old you have to be to work there, but he was talking to us, and we started talking about religion, and he was out, and he was like, said to the girl who I was dating at the time, he's like, "Kristen, do you think that I'm going to hell because I'm gay?" And her response wasn't, "No, sorry, I shouldn't have named her." Well, you don't know her last name, that could be anybody. I forget that maybe other people other than 6 people are watching this, and maybe I should be obscuring identities more, but in any case, her honest response at the time, and I'm sure she's grown since then too, but the honest response was, I don't know. She told her friend, "I don't know if you will end up in hell because you're gay." And that to me was such an insane thing to say to your friend. The obvious answer is like, "No, of course not. You'll be fine." So again, things like this where you start to see the humanity of people, of something that you weren't close to. And I'm going to beat this point to death, but I hate the fact that to really learn things, we need to oftentimes we need to be exposed to them, or even if we don't, that's what ultimately gets us there. But I think that's the crux of behind why I'm trying to do what I can, is understanding that not everybody has to be an advocate for themselves, or shouldn't have to be forced in that position to educate everybody. Maybe I can share some of that burden and start to proactively offer information and share these stories. Again, like, this isn't a cool thing for me to be talking about what an awful human I was, but I think it's important in the conversation to show that there's growth, you know? And again, maybe be relatable to people who have some sort of thing. So moving past that into just generally speaking, right, of how I would be responding to people, like there's all kinds of things that you say or things that seem or that that I would say that you know, are off color or remarks that might be hurtful. And you know, I did have some dear friends, one friend in particular, who always tried to like get me to see the light. She always tried to like turn me around and say, hey, you know, maybe you shouldn't say that. That's not cool. And I'm like, boy, whatever. She's like, you know, no, this could be offensive to some people. And I'm like, well, you know what I mean. And she's like, well, some people might not know what you mean. And I'm like, well, I'm not talking to them. Who cares? You know. And you sort of develop this, like, you have you don't really have any desire to change. Oh, now that Mario and Luigi are gone, I can get this coin block over here. Yeah, there I go. Look at me. We're raising money. My shoulder is killing me right now. I'm such a loser. But there, almost walked in front of somebody's picture, sorry. There isn't a strong desire to change when you're always around the same circle of people, you know? So I started having more experiences, and the people who I was like friendly with had my support. Obviously, I was always in their corner, would give them whatever they need, but it started becoming clear that like I wasn't being a true advocate or ally, because by not changing certain behaviors and still, you know, being dismissive of things, you know, at best I wasn't helping, and at worst I was contributing to the problem at large. So I'll pause there because it's kind of a big thing. And forgive me if I have already talked about this, but I do want to bring it up again in case new people are jumping in or you can't hear me. We got 2 hours. I got plenty to talk about. Oh my God, I'm out of breath. You know what's nice about this room? This is like the cold cave of Super Nintendo World. And when it's very hot, it is cold here in the snow-capped mountains. So it's a nice place to take a breather. It is, however, too dark for me to see my notes. So I must persevere and collect more coins. We often, like, or I shouldn't say we, I often wonder, I'm on Facebook, which is that's my problem. That is definitely my cross to bear, but I remain on it because I feel like I need to remember what the rest of the world's like, and that there is another part of the world that's out there. But there's people who I went to school with, not even just kids, there were teachers who were super kind to me, and just, I always thought were like very caring and empathetic people. And they seem like nice, but then you see them post stuff that's the most heinous, awful stuff, and you're like, how are these people that seem so nice that I've interacted with, that I knew to be reasonable or seemingly normal people, how could they also be so terrible and so mean and lack empathy? And it's hard coming to terms with, and you know, especially as you talk to like who do you want to keep in your life, and how do you reach out? Like, if you're an empathetic person, empathy seems obvious. Yes, Mr. Marr, these teachers, they're great except for the ones who aren't. Empathy seems obvious if you are an empathetic person, but if you're not, if you're just like a nice person or a polite person, but you're not empathetic, it isn't something that comes naturally. And I know that sounds crazy, but that is my experience. Like, when we were growing up, we got taught manners, you know? we got taught say please and thank you, but we weren't always. Ooh, that was a good point block. Even if you were like in religion, you know, when you're falling asleep when you're a kid. You're not actually listening to the lessons. And even adults aren't really listening to the lessons, I'd argue, a lot of the time. But you got taught like, hey, be polite and be kind. You didn't get taught like, really, truly, like, love your neighbor. You know, empathy came with caveats. Empathy was only for people who you thought, excuse me, I spit, gross, who you thought deserved it. It became a matter of like good versus bad. And that just was the way it was. And that's what you were around. So when you would see your parents or you would see people that you cared about who were talking about empathy in that way, I mean, we literally had parents of my generation, boomers and boomer adjacent, who were like literally cheering for war. They were, when the Gulf War happened, they were like watching TV and celebrating it. And, you know, years later, even with Afghanistan, and you have people who are cheering that on, and that's just what you know. So it's like, oh, that's okay, because those are bad people. And again, this all seems so silly, but like when you're in it, it just seems clear of like, oh, well, some are good and some are bad, and some deserve care and some don't. And that, I think, is a hard thing for people to come to terms with and to sort of come around, you know? Being nice is not always the same as loving your neighbor as yourself. And I'm not saying this in defense of these people. I'm saying it because I was one of those people. And again, like I've made the point before, but it's not anything that I'm super stoked about or super proud of. But, you know, it was that is what the journey was. And I think maybe in trying to articulate it, if there are other people who come across this and watch it later, maybe it speaks to them. But anyway, the more people who I met, the further I branched out, it started to make me reconsider every single thing that I felt to be true at the time, or believed to be true, or never spent enough time to equivocate on whether or not it was true, but just did it for lack of. Oh, Princess Peach arrived. There was much fanfare. I hope that the juxtaposition of discussing these serious topics in the silliest thing and place ever is not being lost on anybody or being interpreted as not caring. That's the joke.gif. Yes, selective empathy. That's exactly right. And, you know, that is obviously a logistical fallacy. You know, empathy needs to be for everybody. All right, what's my note here? Sorry, I'm going back into the cave. I don't even understand what that was. Oh, yes. So talking about the fact that something does need to affect you before you care is terrible, and it shouldn't be. But depending on how you're starting out, that can be the reality. I will pause again in the dark. Oh, it's so nice and cool in here. Yes, we conquered the stairs for the fire fundraiser, and now we're conquering stupidity and ignorance by collecting coins in Super Nintendo Land. I have a feeling that I'm well beyond my limit here. I'm sorry, Scooter. Thank you. I think that I'm well short of what my 750 an hour goal was, but we'll see. Hold on now. There we go. That was a good one. So fix my notes. I wish that I was able to just like talk about stuff eloquently without the need to constantly be referencing material, but I digress. I think that is really the message, is that it's okay to seek out and solicit stories and really listen to other people. You know, being dismissive is so easy, but what's the purpose of life if we're not challenging ourselves, right? And we're not trying to press back on what we need to be true, especially when it comes to like other people's experiences, you know? If we can collectively, and I'm sure most of you watching are doing this already, so again, this message isn't really for you, but you know, the idea of dismissing someone else's experience because you don't believe it to be true based on nothing because you're not the one who's actually living it. Oh, let's take a break there. As Joe says, what's the mechanism for capturing the coins? So that is a power-up band. You can buy it for like $40 in the gift shop, and it enables you to, when you hit a coin block, get coins. If you don't pay, sorry, somebody was waiting to take a picture. If you don't pay for the band and you hit the coin block, nothing happens. So often, if we're walking around, you see little kids who are sadly hitting the thing and don't have them. Yeah, you love them your power-up band, because who doesn't want to hit a coin block? It's so fun. This area, honestly, is so amazing. It is the closest you could the closest you could be to stepping into a video game, really. It's so, that one didn't have anything. So marvelously executed across the board in every capacity. And hopefully you're catching a bit of that in the background as I'm walking on here and rambling. But on the tone of being around people or talking to people who have different experiences than you do and sharing them, on the day that the gay marriage bill was signed into law, basically allowing it, I was sitting at a bar in New York City with a producer friend of mine, and she was a lesbian she was old school New York, you know? She's probably in her time, maybe in her early 50s, but she had grown up in the boroughs, and she was as New York as they come. And we were sitting at the bar. It was me and her and one other person, and we were watching the announcement on TV. And obviously I was happy for her. She had a partner at the time. I don't know if they were married already because New York State had allowed it. I don't remember exactly, but this was, I think, the national bill. And she was just kind of like staring at the TV. And, for me, it felt like, this is a happy moment. Obviously, I'm happy for her, but like, how could you not be moved in that situation where she was just reflecting on her life and how awful she had it, and how people were so mean and everybody was so, bigoted, and she got bullied and teased and all this stuff. And here it was, like, finally, after all this time, it was happening for real. It was this saying that it was okay. And that's something that I remember forever, and also, again, helped contribute. And not everybody, of course, is going to have that same story, but it's the idea of seeking out stories and asking her, like, hey, what was it like for you growing up? What does this mean for you? As I'm saying this, I realize that I sound like an absolute moron for being like, wow, other people have experiences that are different than mine. But I don't know how else to keep, making the point. I mean, so now, in addition to talking to her and learning about what her experience was growing up and in an environment that was not inclusive and not supportive of her and her lifestyle, or her sense of being, I should say, we started talking about other stuff. So now I'm learning about Stonewall, and I didn't know about Stonewall because they didn't teach you that in Saddlebrook, New Jersey. And I was, after college, I was a professional in my career, and I had never heard of this. Not like I had heard a little bit of it, I had no idea. And it is on me, there's no reason why I couldn't have, during every Pride celebration, looked up, well, how did this start? What is this? you know? And I say that to other people who might be out there saying stupid, bigoted things like, why do you have to celebrate it? You know? Well, there's a whole story. Look it up. Educate yourself. You know? It's hard. There's, the joke of everybody has all of the world's information in their pocket, and nobody wants it. It's so true and so sad. Yes, I agree with the sentiment on the coin blocks. There's also something kind of funny about talking about stone wall in front of stone walls, but I don't know. Maybe that's stupid. To get to a point of naturally wanting to investigate things that you don't know about, or this one's a little tricky, or learning about things that you didn't know about, especially when they challenge, maybe not who you are as a person, but just core beliefs that you're just too lazy to change. It's super difficult. I mean, I joke about where I grew up, but it wasn't the sticks. Like, I grew up about 20 minutes outside of New York City, but for some reason, my town, my little suburb, was this completely isolated little place. And, it was not diverse, and it was filled with a lot of, religious people who all sort of shared the same school of thought. And, it's one thing when you're growing up with it in your home. It's another thing when you're growing up with it and it's your whole city. Like, it's everybody you've ever known, And again, this is absolutely not meant to be in any way, shape, or form. Like, aren't you so proud of me and how far I've come? This is not about me. If you're just joining, this is about supporting the Trevor Project as part of Park Stop's Stop Hate fundraiser, and we're smashing coins and getting donations for coins made thanks to our pledgers. If you did not get in on the coin donation pledge action and would like to donate, there's a link in the description to Park Stop's fundraiser. So please take a look at that and toss over a couple of bucks if you are able to. But like to continue the thought, like, this isn't meant to be a like, hey, aren't I so cool? Aren't you so proud of me? Look at how much better I am than I was. In fact, it's the opposite. It's hard to talk about this and to kind of go through the paces of like how embarrassingly long it took for me to come around and, find my way to being a better individual. But the best I can do is try to bring people along for the ride who are not there yet, maybe who are watching or will find this later and can come to the same terms, and also to raise my kids. A friend of mine said the other day, he's like, if I'm lucky, my children will be so much better people than I was in my 20s, and I'm hopeful that I'm doing a good job as a parent to make sure my kids get a better start than I did and learn true value of being empathetic people, not just being kind people. So how this whole thing started, right, or how I started this whole conversation was that I always viewed myself as an underdog for being small, being bullied for that. But it was really like in sports, and in like competitive fields, I would always root for the underdog or consider myself that way. But, you grow up and you realize that, wait a minute, as a straight white dude, I am actually not an underdog in the game of life. Conversely, I'm actually someone who has it so much better and has so much amount of privilege and so many things that I don't need to worry about because of that status. And I'm sure saying that in general is alienating to some people, because it's the same sort of boomer mentality of like that's discounting any work that I did or any hard work or toil that I put in, is saying I got it because of this. But obviously that's stupid. we all need to work hard, but working hard doesn't mean you don't catch a break too, you know? So in starting to understand that, wait a minute, I'm not an underdog in this capacity, but I can, because I'm not, I'm uniquely situated to help talk about these things and maybe be a voice for people who don't want to be a voice, and to speak a little more loudly for people who are afraid to, for whatever reason. And that is who I want to be. I will pause there to enjoy the sweet chill of whatever frozen land this is. The idea of not just being a friend, but to truly be an advocate, and to make this one is killing me because you get so many coins from that block. If that's not working, I'm gonna have to go double time. But committing to the idea of being an advocate by self-reflection, understanding, committing to do better, to be better, to teach better, and all those things. Because I have kids, and we're talking about book banning. In the year of Captain Cacao 2025, we're still talking about book banning and how silly it is. And the idea of that, well, I want to be able to talk about these situations or this context when I'm ready on my terms. But there's no context outside of these are humans who exist. And by not acknowledging that, and by trying to censor it or making it feel like a taboo, you are erasing existence of people. And again, this isn't for anybody who's watching. I know that this is obvious and all of you know all this, but that's that weird thing. And you know, when I had kids, I'm like, well, maybe I'll feel differently. Like maybe I won't know how to talk about this stuff, or I'll be weird. And you know, my daughter came home from school one day, and she was like, my friend at school or someone at school said that two girls can't get married. Is that true? And we said, no, it's not true. They can, because factually, they can. That's the answer. There's no other context. It's a real answer to a real question. There's nothing like. You can put any other context you want, but kids are just looking for information. Is this or is this not a thing? Yes, it is a thing. That's the end of the story. She didn't really care. She didn't have any other follow-up questions after that. You don't have to have a long conversation about how some people may be different. But the problem with saying that in people is not about the fact that it exists. It's the fact that they don't want to recognize the existence. And that's stupid and awful. And we to be now in a time when that's coming back, that we can't provide our children with honest answers to questions because of one's own context or belief outside of that is incredibly tragic. I mean, I remember there was somebody I knew was a wife of a friend, and they were complaining about the PBS show Daniel Tiger, because Daniel Tiger, which is, for those of you who don't know, Mr. Rogers had the land of make-believe, and there was a little tiger in it, and then they made a cartoon about Daniel Tiger, and it's very sweet, and it's for babies. But there was a kid, another animal child, a platypus or something, that had two moms, and they didn't go into it at all. They just showed them on screen, and the comment was like, "This is pushing an agenda." It's like, it's representing what's real. There are probably some kids in your class who have two moms. And it's when going back to empathy, like, forget how you feel about anything else. When it comes to kids, that's what everybody likes to stomp their foot about, right? We do it for the kids. It's all about the kids. It's important for the kids. But they are dismissing that child who now, does that kid have to feel like they're an outsider? Does that kid have to feel like there's something wrong with them because of a situation that they're in where they have, two moms? Like, it's insane that somebody would want to speak against that or to try to hide that when it's for children. And it's not making any point. It's just showing representation. Anyway, that really got my goat. Yeah. As we're getting to the end of this, excuse me, we're getting to the end of my notes here. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So, now of course, as we talk to what the Trevor Project does and whom it helps, we talk about transgender folks. And that's why we're doing this fundraiser in Super Nintendo World and not in Hogwarts. But people who are the most vulnerable. And we're talking about young people, kids, that everybody says this is the big thing. The onus, as we said before, the onus isn't on the transgendered to have to explain why their human life has value. And it's unfortunate. Oh yeah, there we go. See, that's what I'm talking about. If I had done that every time. It's unfortunate that these people are often put into that position to have to do it because there aren't a lot of people advocating for them. And I think that if you're someone who has an issue with transgender folks or gay or lesbian folks or bisexual folks or whatever we're going through, these marginalized communities, you have to think about empathy and think about who are you trying to protect, and are you trying to avoid yourself having a thought about something that makes you uncomfortable? Are you just a polite person, or are you an empathetic person? I mean, there was an old David Cross bit, which I thought was funny. And he said, I don't understand these people who think that, being gay is a choice. He's like, I'm sure there's a kid, 13, acne-ridden. He's like, everybody hates me. I have nonstop bullying in my life. How can I invite even more nonstop harassment for no reason? Yes, that's a choice that a lot of kids are making. It's so dumb, and to make a proper video that debunks all the stupid things that people say about transgender folks is gonna take a lot more time, and I want to make sure that I'm being more articulate in that important conversation than I would be while I'm punching coin blocks. So that might be another video. Ranking churros and talking about transgender rights. Be on the lookout. Anyway, the Trevor Project. We're helping out the Park Stop Fundraiser. We are not a part of the Park Stop Fundraiser. That is Alicia Stella's wonderful work that she is doing. We're just trying to help out. I don't want to take any credit for that. At last I checked, they have raised over $30,000, which I believe was a stretch goal. They were trying to raise $25K. They made it to $30K. So let's get them to 35, right? That's we out here. But yes, the Trevor Project, these are kids. They're young people. And I don't know what all of your teenage lives were like. Um, I don't know if you all had it really easy and were all the cool kids growing up, but I wasn't. That's a hard enough time in life as it is, and these kids don't deserve to feel lost and alone. If you were one of those people who got mad that half of Congress was not standing up for a sick child, look in the mirror. Are you standing up metaphorically for these kids who need it? Something to think about. Let me say this as I wrap all my notes to a close here, and I will get down to these notes in the chat to finish this up before we check our coin count for the first hour. The performative allyship, while we're in these parks especially, that burns my butter. and I will say, to Universal's credit, 100% of the proceeds that they make from all of their Pride merchandise goes to charity. So they are literally putting the money where the thought is. And there are a lot of places that aren't doing that. And at the same time, when these theme parks are not coming out in support of these communities who not only make up a huge percentage of the people who go there, but who work there and who built these places, that makes my blood boil. So it's always good to consider what causes you're supporting, and I would love for these places to have less of that performative pride stuff than actually doing something that matters. You know, it's the same as these people who go there all the time. People who are huge fans of the parks, or fans of Disney, or fans of Universal, and they have problems with the LGBTQ plus community. And it's like, hey, look around. You know? Again, these places were built on the backs of that community. You have Bob Gurr, legend. You're gonna hate on Bob Gurr? Dude built the friggin' Matterhorn. You are not allowed to have that stance. I know that we're all hypocrites, but you know, and you look at Howard Ashman, and God, whenever I'm trying to think of a name, it blanks. But Howard was the man. Howard was behind the Disney Renaissance, and he lived such a tragic existence. There's a great documentary on him that you need to watch if you haven't seen it already. It's on Disney Plus. But how he had to hide who he was, and even when he was sick and dying of AIDS, he had to hide all of this amongst the great work that he was doing, because he thought that Disney was gonna let him go, because that wasn't a consumer-friendly position to be taking at the time. That's awful, and I don't know how you can, in good faith, be a supporter of these parks and these projects and have any sort of issue with this community and not also be advocating for them as best you can. And one more thing, as I come to my last note, and thank you all so much who have been watching for this hour-ish with me on this journey. Another thing, and this will be my last point, that gets me super riled up is these dopey YouTubers. Because while there are some, like the wonderful Alicia Stella, who is behind this Stop Hate Park Stop fundraiser for the Trevor Project, and there are a few others. I know Molly from the Mammoth Club also has a video where she's celebrating Pride, and you know, stuff that she talks about a lot on her socials. There are a lot of people who are somehow making a living from YouTube. Darned if I know how that's working out. But they're making their living from that, from these places that mean a lot to these people and are intertwined with these groups in their core DNA, and they are silent on these issues. And I think that that's really gross, and I think that sometimes you have to be the person to take the step and say, you know, this may affect me personally, negatively. Maybe there's some people that get turned off. Maybe I'm getting less clicks or less views or whatever. But who do you want to be remembered as? You know? Do you want to be someone who just stayed quiet, especially now in the face of all this stuff? I think that the silence from folks who have not made statements on this is ridiculous and shameful. And I won't get any further into that now, but, and I'm not pointing at anybody, though it sounds like I'm subtweeting. I'm not pointing at anybody in particular, but I am making a general point that I should be overwhelmed in the channels I follow, and in this world, I should be inundated with content about this sort of stuff, especially during this month, that's not performative and that's purposeful. And I'm not. And I hope that that gets better. So, and I'm not trying to put myself on any pedestal because I'm an idiot. But I think that going just through this exercise, and if anybody watches this talk, and being personal about my own shortcomings and my own mistakes, and trying to be a better person, that's what I can do at this moment. So thanks everybody. I appreciate you listening. I love going back to these comments. Yeah. As Joe said, you know, people can't just avoid media they don't agree with. It's so easy to ignore stuff, you know? I went years without knowing who Logan Paul was. It's not hard. Just ignore it. Let it go. You don't need to ruin things, especially for kids. You don't need to be a face of conflict for children. Every child should feel welcome and wanted and accepted, no matter who they are, what their life situation is. So I agree. And KevDog, empathy is not a finite resource. Man, that's a great quote. I might have to widen my frame a little bit on some of these punching the blocks. God forbid somebody takes any of these gifts out of context. Yeah, whenever I get heated, I smash the coin block harder. That is true. I did put sunscreen on. Thank you for caring. I am red, but I turn red often. Anytime I'm out in the sun, whether I am sunburned or not. I did cover in 50 SPF, so I think I'm okay. And I'm spending some time in the cold area, which is good. I remember my son is the same way. He's fair-skinned, and he came home from like some soccer thing, and he was so red. And I was like, because it was like 90 degrees out, and they're running around on an open field with no shade. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be in so much trouble when he comes home and he's burned. But he returned to regular color. It's not a burn. Sunscreen is very important. That'll be my next fundraiser. Is championing the benefits of sun protection, because who needs that? All right, I'm gonna do one more loop, and then that will hit us at the first hour. So if you guys want to wait 3 more minutes, you can see what my coin total is, and we're gonna try to at least match that and hopefully surpass it in hour 2. Again, if you would like to make a donation to the Trevor Project, please click the link in the description below. I hope that y'all enjoyed that. I was nervous about reading through and getting all that said, but I think it went as best as one could imagine. So let's see here. I also didn't charge the microphones. I plugged them into my computer, and I thought that I charged them, but as they came up, it turns out they were not charged when I plugged them into a wall. So I guess it was just giving me like an error message because it didn't like that I was plugged into my laptop. So I am happy that the mics seem to still be working. Thank you, Kev, I appreciate it. And I hope that cumulatively by the end of this, if we're at like $150, $200, I'll feel good. And depending on how high the grand totals come in, I'm gonna match it or a part of it. I haven't looked, so in the unlikely event that this is we have raised tens of thousands of dollars, do not quote me on that whole match part, but I will be making my own donation as well, and I appreciate everybody who has kicked in so far. All right, we're going back up to the cave, then we're coming downstairs. I've been skipping some blocks in the loop if there's people there, just so I don't, one is so I can keep my coin per minute pace good. The other thing is I'm mortified to not only be doing this, but wearing this microphone and be anywhere around people because it's embarrassing. And I keep saying fundraiser so people don't think that I just do this for clout. Though I certainly have on other projects. All right, it's a good one. I will say too, most of these blocks are in pretty good shape, considering that this has been open for coming on a year and a half, and people are pounding the ever-loving snot out of these blocks. Most of them still work. See, that one has trouble because people know that's the money bin block. So gets a lot of wear and tear. All right, heading back down the cage. The cave. I'm the cage. We'll hit the one by the wall and the ones by the bathroom, and then we'll head over to our collector. We'll see if I'm up at 750. I'm gonna be well short, and then I will probably end this stream to focus on block coin collecting, and I'll catch you up on the socials after so you can see how I did. I'm on the blue sky, which is fun. All right, somebody's there, I gotta skip that one. All right, nobody's at the bathroom ones. Let's get these real quick, and then I'll show you where we scan the wristband, which always has varying degrees of working. All right, last couple. We've hit 10:05, so we are, come on. Yeah, all right. We're an hour and 1 minute in, close enough to an hour. Let's see here. These don't look like they're working. There is not one over there. Oh, let me see. All right. Let's look. Here I am. Team Yoshi. Let's see. Rank. It's team daily. That's what I want. No, where's mine for the day? All time. Mario Kart. Bowser Jr. Let's see. Mario Kart. Can get in there. All time. No. Daily. This should be it. Oh, you guys can't see that screen at all. Oh, hold on. I'm going to go over here and tell you. We're loading daily stats. And No, where am I? I thought I could check on the screen. Wait, daily? What is this one? That's team. No, daily. Sorry, this is incredibly uninteresting as I try to figure this out. You can see in my face the crushing feeling of, oh no, is this not being tracked? It is. I think I just have to open the app. Yeah, because the daily stats are not, okay, they're not loading. So I don't think I can do, oh my God, I have a blister on my thumb. Yeah, I can reveal an 8-bit character on a wall here. This is gonna be gross, so NSFW. Look at my thumb. I have to change the way I'm hitting the blocks. Small price to pay. Whoop. All right. I will.
That was mostly easy.
I might treat myself to a Mario soda after this is said and done, but I'll do a scan the 8-bit character so you guys can see that. So this doesn't account for any coins or anything. So, oh, what does this thing do? Whoa! So cool. If you haven't been to Super Nintendo World, I highly recommend it. Go to the one in Florida if you. It's easier than going to the one out here in California. I'm gonna end this now so I can see how many coins I have and start smashing more blocks for hour 2. So follow up on the Blue Sky. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your donations, and we will see you next time. If you're lucky enough to be helping out the Trevor Project, hey, you should be helping out the Trevor Project, so go do it. Thank you again. I appreciate all the support. I'll see you next time.